And welcome to Pulp Mythos. I'm Brian here with Larry, and we're going to be discussing Invincible, episode number 6. You Look Kinda Dead. That is the title. If you've not hit the sub button or the bell, please do so. We'll be doing these reviews every single week. And let's go ahead and start with Doug Cheston. We get an introduction to a character on a college campus. He's being obnoxious, and I quickly recognized the voice. And yes, in fact, Justin Roiland was doing a little cameo, which was even more frustrating when his vocal cords were ripped out, because I'm like, oh,
Yeah,
like,
now I want more Doug Cheston.
Exactly. I was like, you set it up and you cast it brilliantly, but he's a busy guy. He has more than one show that he works on, so I'm sure it was just a quick little fun thing he did. But yeah, that was great. You noticed it immediately that it was him?
Yeah, I was like, wait a minute, who is that? I was rewinding and looking, and it's like, yeah, that is Justin Roiland. No way. But I was also cracking up at that just when he sings his own name.
Yeah. Well, then he's drinking, and then he belches. He pull sort of a.
He's this trust fund kid. Yeah, he's this. He's belting it out, absolutely. And he's that kid whose dad bought a building at the university, so he gets to go there. Grades are probably horrible.
Yeah, I was disappointed that he died. But
biggest loss.
Yeah, best opportunity. Maybe he had a twin. Maybe we'll do that.
But like a Greg Cheston,
dude, anything. Yeah, exactly. Bring Roiland back. But they're dealing with the opening is basically dealing with after that scene, dealing with the ramifications of the battle with Battle Beast. We still have Monster Girls down and out, robots, trying to help her. He's trying to explain to the doctors that it was magic based, not medical, that gave her powers. Therefore, she needs to be treated as such. So I like that dynamic with it.
Yeah.
As far, them explaining that. Black Samson, something weird's going on with him. It appears as maybe, he feels like he did when he had his powers. Where is that going? And then we have Mark himself, who's in really bad shape, but recovered fairly quickly. Any thoughts on any of those?
Well, yeah, absolutely. And as everybody's waking up, they're like, "Did we win?" And Robot's telling them like, "Yes, they did win." But I had to rethink that. I was like, "Oh, did they win?" And then I thought to myself, like, "Yeah, I guess they did win. They kind of got ate up, but they stopped the guy." So, maybe there's someone else in his seat. So I guess they sort of won, but we got to see, the Guardians get their asses handed to them, and that's one of the things I like about this series, that it isn't all winning, it isn't all Superman saves the day in Invincible. Some heavy losses are taken sometimes, and this is a win for them that definitely feels like a loss.
Yeah, because the only thing they won was they did take Machine Head out, but Battle Beast just left because he got bored, and like you said, Titan now runs he replaced Machine Head. So did they win?
Right.
But Mark, he's been trying to get this whole thing with Amber, and so he's just like, look, he finds out that his friend William is going on a college little weekend getaway at a college that he wants to go to. William's, we find out he did hook up with Rick, this new character, and he basically, he wants to go to this college and hang out with this guy, and so Mark's just like, it was such a dick move at first. I was like, he's just going to leech on this trip. William just laid out the reason. He's like, yeah, I want to go to this college, but I also want to, this dude Rick's there that I'm interested in. And Mark's like, well, I'm going to, and I'm going to bring my girlfriend. And, William's cool about it. He's like, yeah, we'll have fun. We'll make the best of it. And it goes horribly wrong. Obviously, good thing Mark showed up, because shit goes crazy really quickly. But how did you feel about that? Because the way that scene played out, I was like, William should have been like, no, dude, I got this whole thing situated.
Right.
Fuck you,
He's like, Mark, it's a college. You can literally show up for a tour whenever you want. Do that later, or do that on your own time. But yeah, he's kind of, third willing his friend here. Well, Mark's showing up as the third will, and bringing his own drama into the mix also. that said, given this whole thing and everything that happened, I'm a little surprised at this point that Amber doesn't just put two and two together and kind of go like, wait a minute, you're invincible. Because I kind of figured that would happen at this point. Because all the excuses, or at least figured, because this is a world with superheroes, and all the excuses he made, I forget how it goes in the book between these two. And there are some differences in things, but I kind of figured, like, given that they have superheroes in their world and they're probably notorious for making excuses, as many excuses as Mark makes, and everybody keeps vouching that he's a good guy, I figured by this point she put two and two together.
We're definitely in Superman Lois territory here as far as what, you're a superhero? I didn't know.
Right.
So yeah, I especially after the battle, which we'll go into now. We're introduced to a character, D.A. Sinclair, and he's a mad scientist type. He wants to perfect humanity by basically creating cyborgs. He views humans as just imperfect machines that need to be fixed, and so he started taking different guys from the college and turning them into cyborgs, including Doug Cheston, which we were introduced to at the beginning, and he attacks. And we're in the middle, they're in the middle of the campus. Rick's about to be attacked. William, starts throwing sodas at the cyborg. Well, clearly Mark doesn't want everybody to know his identity, so he sneaks off, comes in as Invincible, saves the day. Sort of. Actually, he was getting his ass whooped. Doug actually, after seeing his face when Mark ripped off his helmet, killed himself by jumping on a giant spike. So technically, Invincible didn't win the fight.
Yeah.
But yeah, Amber sees this and flips out. Which, if she truly believing that that even William was sitting there, fighting, everybody stayed except Mark. Mark runs off. So in her eyes, she's like, "What the hell, dude? Screw you." And so she's real upset about it, and she's upset for the rest of the episode. Like, this does not get resolved. She's like, "No, we're through." And that was frustrating for watching how all that played out.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, what do you
absolutely.
think?
Yeah, and it is frustrating seeing this, but because it's like we're old enough now that we've seen that story play out with superheroes 1,000 times, where it's like, yo, Spider-Man's late to this thing, or Mary Jane's mad at Spider-Man for this, or Clark missed this date with Lois because of this one thing, but in this scenario where there are so many superheroes and Mark just disappears at random, and I think does she know that Eve's a hero at this point?
I want to say she does. I can't remember.
I think she mentions it.
Yeah, I think she does.
She should know by now. She should absolutely know, and maybe it'll be a thing in this series that she does know, but she wanted him to trust her enough to figure it out. But yeah, it's interesting that we're here already. Because correct me if I'm wrong, but in the books, this plot line happens a bit later. Like Mark is actually like college age when this storyline happens.
This, because the Sinclair storyline is important. I think it is later. I can't completely remember this, but because they've changed a lot of things with William in terms of the story and the pacing. William's a little more in the book early on, where they sort of cut him out, and now they're bringing him back later. Like the whole thing where William finds out that Mark is invincible and he's like, "I want you to fly me around." That's in the comic.
Yeah.
Actually, there's more of it in the comic than what even they showed. Well, it's actually a funny part in the book. It's really funny because he does threaten me. I want to tell everybody if you don't, fly me around. So yeah, that as far as William and Amber, they are sort of, the story isn't exactly the same. They've tweaked a few things, including when things happen.
Yeah, and I just like to compliment the show on this, the fact that that they're maintaining, and I know this from the book, and this is a good thing that Kirkman does as well. Like in this sort of thing, in this sort of property, where you're dealing with superheroes and things, you normally don't care about the family members and the friends, at least not the human ones without powers that aren't actually going to do anything. You don't care about them that much, but this show does a good job of investing you in those little personal dramas. It's done a really good job of that, and I think I mentioned this last episode, but they're definitely maintaining it. And I definitely care to see where a lot of this goes. Which of these characters will be back and survive, and how, and like, and even, of course, the stuff with Mark's mother and his dad. I mentioned that, but just his little clique and his group of friends and stuff. It's interesting to follow.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah, I like that stuff. Like you said, they do it so well. You actually, when they're not doing the superhero stuff and they're just doing the character stuff, you're as into it. And it just it's because of the writing so well. There's even an amazing scene where I'm jumping ahead, but I'm going to do it anyways. When Nolan is having a beer with Art
Yeah,
on a, and there's a little, it's tense, but then it's very personable because they're talking about their history, and there's a funny little moment, but it's just two guys having a beer. Yes, there's more to it. Obviously, the implication that Art knows the truth about what Nolan did, and Nolan fishing for information. But it's yet again, it's just two guys having a beer, and it's very well done.
well, yeah, and I think it speaks volumes that this is a part of the show that we're praising in Invincible, and it's the same part of Falcon and Winter Soldier that we gripe about. Why do we care
That's a
about?
good point.
Yeah, why do we care about Bucky's therapist? Why do we care about Sam's sister? But in this, it's clear, and they make you care.
Yeah, and I don't want to stick on that too long, but you're right. That was one of my biggest concern or conflicts is in that particular series. You introduce all these characters, and yet their plot lines and their interactions just feel hollow and not developed enough. And um, this show does the opposite. I feel. I think it nails them perfectly.
Yeah, definitely. It's just like everybody's personalities are so fleshed out, and they feel very real.
I would say Debbie has benefited the most as far
Definitely.
as characters that weren't as well, maybe well written in the comic early on. She is later, but and not that she wasn't well written. She didn't have a whole lot of screen time, if you will. Where on this, she's getting a lot more lines. They're doing a little bit more with her, I feel, and so her character's benefited a great deal. And in fact, like I said earlier, with Art, she figures out they find out the truth. They know for a fact Omni Man killed Guardians of the Globe. She doesn't know why. She doesn't have any of the details, but she confronts him about it, and he basically plays dumb. And there's now this tension, and it's very well played, and it leaves you on the edge of still wondering what the hell's going to happen next. What's she going to do? Is she going to contact Cecil about this? Is she going to keep it to herself? Is he going to tell her the truth? Because we still haven't been given the answer as to why he did it. He's
Yeah.
been very, that's been the mystery of the season so far. So very much enjoying her story.
Well, yeah, absolutely. And, I think that plays into, and I am going to get out the relationships to some degree, but that plays into what I'm saying because, that argument they had and the way it went, it felt like they'd been married for 20 years, like they had, because they had that
Yeah.
argument. They come to a place where neither of them could really accept where that conversation might be about to go. And you could just kind of see that, in that scene. And like you said, Debbie's played a lot better because, like, I don't know, I think in the comics, it's more like she wasn't as crafty. Like, I don't think she, like, deduced it and figured it out. I think she was just kind of confronted with it to some degree, or stumbled upon it. But in this, she put some work in and she figures this out. Debbie seems very, very crafty and very clever and smart, and like she has been married to a superhero for 20 years who have been up to and had to figure out certain things the hard way, about that part of his life. Like,
Yeah. Yeah, because she's had pretty much equal screen time with him in the show, where she doesn't necessarily in the comic.
right.
Um, a side storyline, which it will make sense later, assuming they get picked up for a second season. But they've been spending a lot of time with Eve, but not really explaining why. In this particular episode, she comes to the conclusion that she wants to help people, and that be her motivating, life goal. And so she does that. She leaves home. She builds a nice little treehouse, and she just flies around helping people. She's one of the main characters of the entire series, um, and there's a lot more to her story that comes later. But this seems like they're slowly building. They didn't know. It feels like they're like, okay, she's important, but not till later. But we still need to keep her relevant and the audience aware of who she is.
Yeah.
So that's what they're sort of doing here. And I'm not complaining about it, but it is sort of feels less important and off to the side. They're not spending a whole lot of time on it, but yeah. How do
That's
you feel about how they're dealing with Eve?
yeah, how they're filling what seemingly would be a gap there. Well, I'm wondering if it will lead to something extra, or if there will be like ramifications of what she's doing. Like she's very much trying to do a good thing with her powers, but I'm but because clearly we're gonna get that thing that brings her back to seeing that, hey, yeah, what you're doing is great, but maybe there are some boundaries to that as well, and maybe you being the superhero helps out just as much in certain ways, especially when we're dealing with like threats like the flaxens. It's like, yeah, that's great, you grew some crops, but normal people can grow crops. Normal people can't fight an entire alien army.
Yeah. Um, Later, the Sinclair storyline gets really interesting, and we have the moment where he kidnaps Rick and turns him into one of these cyborgs. He then kidnaps William, and Invincible makes his way down the sewer, and we're given a wonderful beatdown scene. I mean, it's the fights are so well done in this show, and Mark gets his ass kicked. I was laughing so damn hard because just the way they animated. I mean, it was a true beatdown. Um, but that scene ends in Rick getting control of himself, and then him and Mark sort of releasing all the other cyborgs because of this device in the back of their heads, and then they're able to defeat Sinclair, and that's sort of the big moment of the scene. Mark loses control and punches the shit out of him, so much so that it basically rips his jaw damn near off. Um, Now, William, obviously, he's upset that Rick's this cyborg and curious where that's going to go. Um, and it's an interesting scene because you have all these cyborgs now. They're not going to be able to be turned back. This is what they are now. Where is it going to go with that? William now knows Mark's secret. That ties into this. Mark lost control and punched a guy harder than he should have. There's a lot of little dynamics at play here. How'd you feel about the whole sequence and what it's setting up?
Well, yeah, there's a lot to say about that. Like you said, those guys, there's no going back because the parts that Sinclair took are missing. And let's talk about that for a minute. The fact that Sinclair, he's one of those characters, and this is one of those things I love about this show. He's one of those characters that the minute you see him, like in the minute he stood up in that classroom, whether you read the books or not, your mind said, "Yep, there's the villain."
Yeah.
He's very much that cliche, but there's like, this is Invincible. There's bound to be more there. Like, but yeah, what he's done, what will be the ramifications? Cecil saw it as a useful thing. What does that mean? And we know he's very much a Nick Fury type, like an old school Nick Fury, and it goes beyond that. The bounds that Cecil is willing to cross. Because he is one of those people that is very much about his job. So what does that mean that he was just examining this tech? And what does this also mean for these people that can't be turned back? What's their future like? What happens? Because we're starting to see Cecil collect a lot of little assets. A Lovecraftian creature here, some cyborgs there. What's going on in that case? And also as far as the fight with Mark and these things, they seem to be overpowering him. Like he had three on him at one point, and he was getting the crap kicked out of him. But he's earlier in the show, he seemed to have problems with just one, and I think it does speak to the strength of the cyborgs that Sinclair creates. But I think they were only able to get as far as they were because Mark was injured the way he was in the previous episode. That Battle Beast just tore him apart.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, Battle Beast beat the shit out of him.
Right?
And Mark's not 100% also in this battle. But It's been interesting as far as the way they've shown the power levels in this show, and who's stronger and who's holding back, and how that all plays out. I think they've done a really good job of it. Some comic book properties, I think, do a poor job of it. I won't go into that here, but that's, I think, as far as what they're doing, I'm enjoying that. Um, Robot and the Mahler twins. They're cloning someone that we know who, because they showed us he took the blood from Rexplode.
Right.
He brought the freed the Mahler twins. They are now cloning that body. Why? What is Robot doing? We don't know. What we do know is that Robot seems to have an affection for Monster Girl, and he's doing everything in his power to help her, which he does, and she comes out of her coma. Now, the interesting thing they showed us that they've not shown us previously is that we get one version of Robot coming back from some quest, and he's all damaged and destroyed, and then a secondary Robot comes in and takes over, showing us that there may be more than one Robot, and he can switch his consciousness. The show shows us that they don't go into any details. And then the final shot in this will tie into the Mahler twins, which ties into Robot. We're at Immortal's grave, and
Yeah.
some kids are digging him up. One of them happens to be the gate guard from the first episode, the at the White House, which is a nice little callback. And the Mahler twins are there. Why are they there? What do they want? What are they going to do? I sort of know this is one I can't go too much into because I absolutely know what they're going to do, but in terms of the way this story is unfolding, I guess the better way to examine this is we only got 2 more episodes. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
And so what are they going to have enough time to do as far as a season? Because I'm pretty sure I know how the season ends now. But damn, man, they need to go ahead and announce season 2, because I swear if they don't fucking make a season 2, I'm going to be outraged.
Oh yeah, because the season one has been so amazing that I'd be heavily disappointed if there was no season two. It's like, but the Mahler twins did mention before that scene, they did mention that they needed some kind of insurance, and one told the other to bring a shovel. So, they may have stumbled upon, the guard's the guard's son, may have gotten himself into a little bit of trouble there. Like, I'm sure he's not the insurance, but it is suspect that they're at the grave of Immortal. And as far as Robot and his motives, yeah, they've remained mysterious throughout the season. It's hard to say. And Black Samson hinted at something very interesting here, where he's like, wait a minute, you seem to care a lot about Monster Girl, like there's something, there's a reason for that. And he's like, I was programmed to care about all humans equally. He's like, well, you didn't get beat up in the Arctic for me, so it's like,
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to call you on that. So it seems like Robot, like, legitimately has some feelings, or is perhaps, more sentient or more alive than he's letting on, or maybe is aware of himself, but we don't have enough info at this point to say.
Yeah, they're like we had said a couple weeks back. The two big mysteries right now is we know something's off with Robot, but we don't really know what. And we know that Omni-Man killed the Guardians of the Globe, but we have no idea why. Those are sort of the two mysteries that the show's been dangling in everyone's face. I'm assuming the Omni-Man one, I'm pretty sure will be resolved this season in terms of the why. Robot, I'm assuming though it's tough to say because a lot of Robot stuff. I mean, these are two characters that are important throughout the series to some degree, and so I don't know. There's only 2 left, and I'm trying to think of. I have no idea what next week's episode is going to be in terms of storyline. I have an idea of what the finale is going to be, but I don't know. They could throw a twist on it or move something around, and I don't know.
Yeah, absolutely. And Kirkman, I believe said in an interview that they were looking to do some things different with the show. And but like you said, we know what Robot's doing and what Nolan, has done. That there's ramifications throughout the series due to their actions. Where they go with that, how far that goes in the direction it's taken. it's hard to say at this point because Robot's such a complex character for one. You
One of the
know,
most complex characters, period.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah, by
in
far.
comics, there's a lot. It's a very interesting character.
Yeah, which is why, like you said, it's like I think I know where this is going, but I'm not 100% on it.
Yeah, because I do think there is although it's stuck very close to the comics for the most part, there has definitely been some deviations, and I could see Kirkman mixing it up a little more, and which as long as it's done well, as long as he's creatively running it, I think it'll be okay. I think one of the issues I had with The Walking Dead, especially when you got out of like season 2 and 3, was I think he was less present when it came to
Absolutely.
decision making, and so certain decisions were made, and it's like that doesn't make any sense. Um,
Yeah, he's got to be there the whole time because The Walking Dead, the downfall of that is that characters change so drastically from season to season, and well, heck, not even that, from half season to half season. Sometimes, uh, like I hope he stays very hands on with Invincible because I'd hate to see it suffer the fate of The Walking Dead.
in the two things, two more things, and then if anything you want to say, involving Sinclair. So we see him carted off at the end with Cecil. Um, Cecil makes it a point to say, "Wow, this is a really smart guy with really cool tech." Like you said earlier, leaving you to think, "Huh, where could that go?" And then secondary, I don't know why they didn't. I don't recall at any point them naming the cyborgs in the episode. They have a name in the comics, and that's the Reanimin.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, it's a known name in the comics. That's what his cyborgs are called. Um, I don't know why they left it out. Maybe there's a copyright thing, or there could be multiple reasons why they didn't name them. But I thought it was odd. I was looking for it and I never heard it, or maybe they thought it sounded dumb when you say it out loud, and we're like, we're not going to use it. I don't know.
Yeah, one of those things Kurtman looked at in retrospect, and he's like, "Nah, this doesn't sound as cool as I thought it did." But yeah, Sinclair having his broken jaw. I don't recall because me, for some reason I read all the side stories first. I read all the like everything that revolves around Invincible beforehand, Wolfman, Super Patriot, etc. You know, it's like what Sinclair's fate is, but you could definitely see him coming back with a metal jaw, and swearing revenge of some kind because this is the type of guy who's too smart to let off that easy.
Well, I mean, hell, in the world of comics, we all know if they're not dead, they're definitely coming back, and even if they are dead, they're still probably coming back.
Right.
So that's just so for a show to go out of its way not to kill a character, you're pretty, can be pretty confident that was for a reason. Trying to go through my notes. Anything else?
Well, I'll just say this too. One thing I was very curious about. Sinclair very much had this view that humanity as a whole is flawed, and like he made his whole car analogy and everything. And yeah, his ego may make him think that he's perfect, but we never got a yay or a nay on that. So when they take them in, when they think they're imprisoning a normal human being, who's to say he hasn't enhanced himself in some ways already?
True. That's a great point. Because that's his whole thing. He sees humanity as you know flawed, and we have the ability to improve it, and why not?
Exactly. He said you wouldn't walk if you could take a car. So it's like why wouldn't he apply that philosophy to himself?
the the whole storyline with Amber, like I said, it didn't. There was no real resolution. We get the shot of him opening the door and her in bed, and he closes it again. Um, as of the ending of this episode, they are broken up. She thinks he's a loser who would run off and leave her to die in a situation where there was an attack, and that is sort of her perception of him. Frustrating for on his part, but that's the story being told. Um,
And
two episodes left.
it is at that point too where the audience has gotten to know Amber a bit, and he knows Amber, and it's the sort of thing where it's like, well, she's a good enough person, you can probably tell her. And it's the one thing we sometimes gripe about annoying teenage behavior. But I think in this show, at their age, it would make sense if at this point,
Yes.
Mark let the cat out of the bag.
Yeah, I am curious how they're gonna deal with it going forward. Yeah, we'll talk off cam because I don't want to spoil comic book stuff, but I think I know what they're going to do as far as this. Um, but yeah, anything else regarding uh, this episode? I can't believe there's only two left. But regarding episode 6 of Invincible.
Yeah, yeah, nothing other than to say what I think you're saying right now, which is that this the series feels like it's ending too soon. It honestly feels like it just started. So
Yeah, absolutely. Um, so yeah, we appreciate everyone listening. We'll be doing another one of these next week. You will notice that on the channel, it's going to be a little different going forward, at least for the foreseeable future. Our schedules are really crazy in the last month or two, job wise, and various things have affected our lives. Nothing bad, but just things are different. So there'll be some times where it's just me and Larry. There'll be some times where it's just me and Spencer, and then there'll be times where it'll be all three of us. So it it's going to be a little different than it has been, but that's just the way it is, schedules and life. So there is that. But yeah, we appreciate everyone listening, and we'll see y'all next time. Bye.
bye.